What's up guys, it's Toby here and welcome to a brand new Liverpool transfer news video. And in this video we will talk about Victor Osimhen, because apparently Liverpool are talking with his representatives. He is a striker playing in League One in France, and he scored 18 goals this season, and he also has a few assists. So he's a very promising young 21-year-old striker playing for Lille. And right now it's huge news, and I want to report on this in the second half of this video, is that the French Prime Minister announced that the French first and second division is cancelled. So after Belgium and the Netherlands and now France also cancelled their season. So far no major announcement about whether the title will be awarded or how they will decide the Champions League, the Europa League places, whether they will have relegation or not. But the Prime Minister said that there will be no football until August at the earliest. So this season is done in France, and that has major implications for many clubs in France as well. Lille might be in a financially difficult situation, so they might have to sell. But first I want to give you guys this report coming from Le Temps Sport, reputable news outlet in France. And guys, if you enjoy these transfer news updates and football news updates, please leave a like and subscribe if you enjoy these transfer updates, and turn on the bell notification so you never miss the latest information. And according to the sources, discussions have recently been opened between Liverpool and the representatives of Victor Osimhen, and the objective is to lay down the foundations for a first contractual proposal if Liverpool ever send out a transfer or a transfer deal, a transfer offer to Lille. Liverpool is taking a position which has already changed considerably in recent months, because this news outlet is reporting that Manchester United and Chelsea are also interested in Victor Osimhen, and Liverpool basically want to be front runners in this transfer situation. So if Victor Osimhen decides to leave Lille, Liverpool want to be first in line. I'm not sure how he will fit in at Liverpool, but I would consider Victor Osimhen as a better striker than Divock Origi. He has better numbers. I mean, he scored 20 goals for Charleroi in the Belgian Pro League last season, and this season he has 18 goals in the French League for Lille, which is a very good number. But of course the French and the Belgian League is not as big as the Premier League. But I would consider Victor Osimhen, as I said, as an upgrade on Divock Origi. Even though Origi is a cult hero at Liverpool, he's a fan favorite, I love him to bits. But if Jurgen Klopp thinks that he can upgrade Origi to a better striker, and also Osimhen is a little bit younger than Origi. I think Origi is like 24 years old, Osimhen is just 21. So there will be, apparently, according to the newspaper, a big battle between the English clubs on who signs Victor Osimhen, and also the Nigerian international, who is now a regular starter for the Nigerian national team. He is a big fan of the Premier League. He wants to play in the Premier League one day. That's his dream, ambition. But according to the news article, Lille want about 60 to 70 million euros for Osimhen. In this very uncertain financial climate, it will be very difficult to get that amount of money. And frankly, I think that if their asking price is not below 50 million pounds, then Liverpool will not sanction a deal. There is no way that we would get anywhere near that amount for Divock Origi, and we wouldn't spend 50 million pounds on a backup striker, if you like, because Roberto Firmino is not going anywhere. He is still staying at Liverpool, at least for the next 1 or 2 seasons, but maybe even 3 or 4. And I consider Roberto Firmino already a Liverpool legend, so I don't think Jurgen Klopp will sell him. And we don't spend 50 million on a backup player. So if Lille lowers their financial valuation of Osimhen. That's the only way that I can see this transfer happening. And Victor Osimhen already has 4 goals in just 9 appearances for the Nigerian national team. In just 9 appearances, 4 goals. That's a very, very good record, considering that he is scoring about 1 goal every 2 games almost. I mean, 18 goals in just 38 appearances for Lille is a very, very good number. And as a 21-year-old, that's a really, really good return. Also, he won the Under-17 World Cup with Nigeria in 2015. So he is part of a great generation coming through. And also he won the Golden Boot in that tournament, which means that he was probably the top scorer, I think. And now let's talk about this crazy situation in European football where France, the Netherlands and Belgium cancelled their leagues, but the leagues of the Bundesliga, leagues of Germany and leagues of Italy, the Bundesliga and the Serie A are putting in plans to start or resume their season at the same time, which is so unusual, so weird. You would think that there is a very similar situation in Italy and France in terms of how serious it is, the health crisis, and Italy are just planning to resume training and planning to resume football. They plan to resume training in the middle of May, so like 2 weeks from now, and they plan to restart or resume their season, the Serie A, 1 month from now. And the French Prime Minister just announced that there will be no professional football at least until August, even behind closed doors, before September. So even in August there will be no professional football in France. And I'm not sure how the Champions League can go ahead at this rate, because I mean, how can you complete this Champions League season and start the next when in some countries the professional football is banned? You can't have any matches, and it's very weird because actually last week the French Professional Football League announced that they are planning to resume the season on June the 17th. UEFA set a deadline of August the 2nd for domestic leagues to be completed, which I think is quite silly because you don't have the Euros in place. So why have a set deadline to complete the season? I think you should just take your time. August the 2nd is too tight of a deadline. But as I said, the French Prime Minister announced that they have no professional football until September, which is very weird, considering that the Bundesliga, the Serie A are planning to resume the season very soon. So I'm not sure what to make of it, and it doesn't bode well if you are a Premier League fan, because the UK also are in a very similar situation in terms of they also are in the midst of this health crisis, and it looks like that in France the numbers are much lower than in the UK, and even though that is happening, France, the cases are going down, they still banned football until September because they deemed it too much of a risk. Basically, the reason for this is that the French government does not see the resumption of football, professional football and professional sport as a priority. Newspaper L'Equipe reported that the season had been cancelled ahead of the planned announcement, and this is what the Prime Minister said: the big sporting affairs cannot occur before September. 2019-20 football season cannot return. And it's very interesting how this will play out. How will the French League announce like who finishes in the Champions League places, in the Europa League places, who gets relegated? Because yes, it's probably pretty easy to award the title in France. Paris Saint-Germain are 12 points clear in the French league, but the other positions are very close to each other. It's pretty easy to award second place as well, because Marseille are 6 points clear of third place Rennes, but this is where the problems start. In France, I think the first 3 teams go into the Champions League, and Rennes are on 50 points, but Lille are on 49 points. So just 1 point separate third and fourth place team, and 1 point separate the Champions League, last Champions League place and the first Europa League place. Also the relegation, how do you decide the relegation? At the moment Saint-Etienne are in 17th place, but just 3 points separate them and 18th place Nîmes, and also Amiens and Toulouse are in the relegation places. I think Toulouse, you can relegate them, they are on 13 points, so they are almost pretty much relegated. But Amiens on 23 points, you can argue with still 10 games to go in the French league that they could get out of it, because the difference is just 7 points. Also Nîmes, how can you relegate Nîmes with 10 games to go when they are just 3 points from the last place who is safe in the French league? So it's very, very difficult. And also Ligue 2, the French second division, is cancelled as well. So how can you solve this conundrum of relegation and promotion? That's why it doesn't make sense for me to cancel this season. Why just say football is suspended until it's safe to play games again, and then have at least some kind of playoff between the teams about to get relegated and maybe the teams getting promoted from the second division. For example, the Bundesliga does this. Bundesliga, I think the team who finishes third from last plays a playoff between the team who finishes third from top in the Bundesliga 2, and the winner of that playoff gets to play in the Bundesliga next season. Why not have a playoff in September or October or whenever it's safe to do so? It's a very, very nonsensical decision to me, at least, but I'm not a health expert, so I would love to hear your opinion on this. It was reported last week that the French league are categorically against voiding this season, so this is not a null and void situation, it's a cancellation situation. And if they award the European places on just points alone right now, I don't think that's fair, because as I said, the third and fourth place team are just separated by 1 point, and there are still 10 games to go in the French league. Also, how can you relegate 3 teams when they still had the chance to get to stay safe if the season was completed? And also the teams in the second division, there is probably a big fight between teams there who gets promoted. So, and there is still 10-11 rounds to go in the French second division as well. So I'm not sure how the teams who will get relegated or promoted, or who will get put into Europe, will feel if that is the decision. And every Friday there is a scheduled press conference group meeting between all Premier League clubs, and the Premier League will hold further talks this week, because UEFA asked every major league to submit a plan by May the 25th on how they are planning to resume their season, and the Premier League is targeting resuming the Premier League behind closed doors in June, and that would mean that on May the 18th Premier League clubs will start training again. How do you feel about this, knowing that Belgium, the Netherlands and France basically cancelled their season? It's very weird to live in this timeline, and this has been unprecedented. Never before has leagues been cancelled since the World War in 1945, and that was an awful long time ago. So this is something unprecedented, a new uncharted territory. The UK Prime Minister Boris Johnson said that to curtail your impatience and to follow the guidelines, because we are getting the situation a little bit better in the UK. That's what he's saying. But at the moment there is no guarantee the Premier League will resume, and I would hate to see the season being cancelled in the Premier League, because I still think that you should first finish this season before you start the next one. The fact of the matter is that professional sport will only resume if your government allows it to do so. So if the French government says you have to cancel your season, the French league, the French clubs can't do anything, because the government has the power to cancel any big sporting event. The Premier League, along with other professional sports, will have to meet specific criteria before a return, including testing arrangements for participants paid for by sporting authorities or clubs, and ensuring measures are in place to avoid fans gathering outside of stadiums for matches. It has yet to be decided whether games will resume at the approved stadiums or they will resume at neutral venues such as Wembley or St George's Park or any other stadium. And it's very weird because UEFA's recommendation is to finish your season, not to cancel it, and France, Netherlands and Belgium just went against that. The Premier League, so far all the noises are coming out that they are committed to finishing the season and playing the remaining 92 games. But Gary Neville, for example, has warned footballers to actually accept and get their heads around the fact that probably this whole year football will be played behind closed doors. What he said, it's going to be strange. It's an awful experience when you are used to playing in front of big crowds. The Premier League lives off its stadium experience. The adrenaline gets pumping for the players and the fans get behind it, but we are going to be playing behind closed doors for months and months, probably into next year. We have to get our heads around that. Some players might thrive on that, which is quite weird, but some players prefer to play without the pressure of the home crowd pressuring you and booing you if you make a big mistake. So I think that the Premier League, some Premier League players will thrive on that, but other Premier League players, and I think the majority of the players, most Premier League players won't enjoy playing behind closed doors. I think that most Premier League players absolutely love the stadium, the crowd, the noise, what the fans give. The Premier League has such a unique and special atmosphere. The fans usually make a lot of noise and it will be a very strange feeling. I watched some games where it was behind closed doors before football got suspended, especially in the Champions League, and it was a weird vibe. You could hear every sound, and it was a different experience. Of course it was a worse experience, but sometimes I enjoyed the sounds of football, where every kick of the ball you could hear, every shout between players, between the manager and the players, you could hear that as well through the microphones. Nothing replaces the fan atmosphere in the stadiums, and especially because Liverpool relies so much on the Anfield crowd, it will be very strange to see Liverpool players, for example, playing in front of an empty Anfield stadium. But if the clubs are allowed to host the games, that is. And there is a big question and a big debate: how many people are actually needed for a Premier League game? The Premier League needs, some reports are suggesting, between 250 and 500 people present, and what I don't want to see is unnecessary people being at the games. So for example, the written media people, there is no need for them to be in the stadium. Radio broadcasters, there is no need for them to be in the stadium. They can broadcast from a studio and just watching a game on the TV. What they have to do is they have to have medical people in the stadium if injuries or anything else happens, somebody gets ill. You need to have, of course, the players, the staff, the managers, but you don't have to have the whole staff of a club there. You don't have to have the 18 coaches that every Premier League team employs there at the game. You just need to be there for the most essential people, with the most essential people. So I really hope that the Premier League can reduce this number, because I heard numbers like 400, 500 people for every single Premier League game to be there at the location, and I think that's too much. You need to reduce that. For example, in Germany, the Bundesliga published detailed guidelines claiming a maximum of 322 people are needed in and around stadiums for a football match to go ahead. I think that's a more realistic number, and I really hope that in the Bundesliga there is a success, that football can restart and the Premier League can follow that blueprint. I would hate to see the Premier League being cancelled as well, but more and more leagues cancelling the season is a dangerous dangerous precedent, that's for sure. And FIFA's medical chief said that football leagues should be cancelled if you can't guarantee the health and safety of everyone attending a football match. This is what he said. In my long career, I have seen many situations where there has been a balance between economic and health. Mostly the economics won, whether that was about jet lag or football at altitude, at high altitude, or in extreme conditions such as pollution situations. If there is one circumstance where medical arguments should win against economical arguments, it is now. It is not a matter of money, it is a matter of life and death. It is very simple. And the medical chief expressed concern that players on a football field would not be able to, of course, adhere to the social distancing rules being in place in many different countries. And also he sees teams changing and showering together as another problem. He's also worried that players spitting on the ground causes a potential issue when it comes to spreading the virus. And speaking to the Daily Telegraph, this expert said, "We are all subject to decisions at national level from the public authorities. It is very simple. Football suddenly becomes not the most important thing in life. I will be happy if we can start in a convenient way the next championship and have nothing before the start of next season. If they could start the season 2020-21 at the end of August or beginning of September, I would be happy. Then they could eventually avoid a second wave of this virus, which is not impossible. Everyone has to be very careful at the moment. I have heard in many countries they are thinking about playing football again with or without the public." And he expressed the concerns about that I mentioned earlier. You can't guarantee that the virus will just go away in September. That's what I don't get. How can you be so sure that the situation will be a lot better in September? There is no guarantee about that. So I think if you can isolate the players and the staff and everybody who is required for the football matches, and if you have them in a separate sealed location and you test everyone before they go into that location, I think you can work that out and just complete the season in like 3 weeks, a month. Also, UEFA proposed change in the rules that you have 5 substitutions allowed just to end this season. Before the end of the season you can substitute 5 players because there will be a bigger workload on players. You probably have to play 3 or 4 games a week just to complete the season as quick as possible. And I think if you want to do that, 5 substitutions makes a lot of sense. But yeah, let me know what you think about all of this that we talked about in this video. And thanks for watching. Hope you enjoyed this. See you later, guys. Anyway.